Now, fast forwarding or coming back to where we were before. So you're in the situation where a current affair has tried to destroy you. You had a pile on from the mass media, mainstream media, and from social media. You had someone start a GoFundMe without your permission and then not shut it down till long after you started asking them to do that. And so now we had people like Lance jumping in saying, you're a scammer, you just wanted the money, blah, blah, blah. Let's wind up that aspect of the story, because I think it's very important that people understand, number one, what you did, and then what GoFundMe came out and actually acknowledged publicly. Yeah. So there's no question about this anymore. Tell us, wind that one up for us.
So with the GoFundMe, the guy who started it, again, I don't know him. I haven't met him, and I do honestly believe he was doing it out of the goodness of his heart. And
he was trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a very kind thing to do. But the issue is when you got all these eyes on you, people are naturally going to assume the worst, like old mate Lance. And so essentially what happened was once the story of my company came out, people assumed that this GoFundMe was started by myself to pay back these debts because I'm this epic scam artist, con artist. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Did I pay Michael to start this GoFundMe? Or like none of it made sense, but that was the narrative set. And so I had never, I went on the Today Show and I discussed this very clearly and very concisely. And I had said from day one that I wasn't interested in having all of this money. That wasn't the purpose of it. And I'd never once asked people to raise money for me. I certainly didn't say that in the videos. And I made the comment that this is way more than I need. And I will start sharing it with a couple of my friends who have businesses that were failing. I filmed a live video in Pokey, Geelong, and I introduced everyone to Sarah and told everyone I was going to be gifting Sarah the money. And then that day is when the A Current Affair hit piece came out. And so I immediately gave the money back to Michael, because I was like, you know what, with all of this heat on me, it doesn't matter what I decide or which business I think is the one that deserves to have some kind of respite. Whatever decision I make at this point will be viewed in poor taste. So all of the money was returned to the guy who set it up. And then GoFundMe, I rang GoFundMe and I told them the situation. And I will say this, GoFundMe were absolutely incredible. They were very, very kind to me. And they were very, very considerate of the nature of the sensitivity of what was going on. And so with GoFundMe, it took quite a while, because when you have that kind of escalation in the media and all these people sort of watching, you got to be really careful. And so we worked really closely, and thankfully it was through GoFundMe that they also worked with the original creator, and we had that mediation, because given the craziness of what was going on, it was best to just deal with them directly. And then wonderfully, GoFundMe worked with COSBOA, which is a small business what's the right word for it? It's like a small business support system that has been doing incredible things for people during COVID. And all that money became grants that people could access through applications. So it did end up going to small businesses, and it was done through a much more organized and administrated circumstance, which is fantastic. And GoFundMe were incredible. They wrote the statement for me that went out. All the money, all the people who championed the GoFundMe and donated were contacted, and they were offered refunds should they prefer them. And I believe most people opted for that business, the business grants, to stay and to stay. So that was wonderful. And it was, it's the best you could have hoped for. So.
Yeah. Look, it's an awful situation to find yourself in. And it's one of those moments where once you're in, there's no good way out. There is no good way out. And it's no matter what you do from there, you're going to have people like Lance who are going to decide to try and make a name for themselves off the back of you. And Lance, I look forward to your video about my ex-girlfriend. Number one, because I don't believe you. And number two, because you're absolutely full of shit. So have fun with that. And hey, the more time you spend chasing me, the less time you spend chasing people like Carly. So chase me all you want.
Well, I think people should look into Lance's history, because it's equally as colourful. So
I'm sure that would be very, very interesting. Maybe we should get friendly Geordies onto Lance's back. What do you reckon?
I think so.
Anyway, so moving on, what we have here is a situation where you simply poured your heart out on social media, and what happened after that was largely out of your control. It was largely other people choosing to do what they did. There came a point, though, where you made the decision that you were going to get back in control of things. So I want to, before we have the toilet break, I want to kind of get to the conversations that we had and the decision that you made in the end that's led to you doing what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was people like Lance who were actively encouraging people to tell me to kill myself and telling people to rape me. And I believe it was either Lance or one of his cohorts that put my personal address online. So as that all unfolded and the incredible barrage of abuse was coming my way, I was very lucky. In the weirdest way, I say this not to be facetious, but I got more support than I could have ever possibly imagined. Like people, like incredibly, incredibly powerful people reached out to me. I have had more work given to me in the last couple of weeks than I could have ever imagined. It's in the weirdest way, it has been the most wonderful possible thing for my career. I have been connected to some people that I would never have ever dreamed having access to. And it was all of those people who are incredibly successful people, incredibly wealthy people who understand the very real repercussions of a liquidation and understood that what happened was a media takedown. And these people were incredible. And you were also one of those people, Topher, that basically was making sure I didn't kill myself. You know, my phone was calling constantly. People were making sure that I was okay. And then we started having chats. The conversation moved away from what other people were doing to, well, what is Carlz doing? And what is Carlz gonna do? And what do you believe? And it's like, well, do you still believe what you said? And do you believe, you know, and I was like, well, yes. And they're like, okay, well, why aren't you standing up and saying it then? And, you know, you're letting people take your power. You're actively choosing that. And I love some uncomfortable truths. And I think you said something about, you know, you set the narrative. You don't let other people set the narrative. And it was a matter of, do I step into this and do I do what they want me to do, which is kill myself, or do I say no? And I chose no, obviously. And I realized that my message and the 40 million views that I got will only be valuable if I get back up again. And that will set a very strong precedent for anyone that comes after me, because you can throw everything you have at me and you didn't kill me. And if anything, you created a monster. So
100%. And I think the point you just made is the most important one. Proving to the mob that they can't actually win that way. You know, there's a sort of a truism that I live by. You get more of what you reward and you get less of what you punish. And every time someone, and this is why I hate these big companies that fold every time the mob comes after them. Because if you reward the mob gets bolder. The mob gets more aggressive, right? And the other thing is, as soon as you fold, you've created a rod for your own back. As soon as you give them power, they will come for you every single chance that they can possibly get. And it's basically just going, no, I'm going to be in charge of my own life. You're not going to be in charge of my life. Random person with a keyboard at the other end of the internet somewhere. I'm going to be in charge of my own life. And I think you've set a fantastic example of that. So you came out swinging. I think you waited until GoFundMe released their statement, which put beyond any doubt what had actually happened with the money. You hadn't taken all the money. I think there was a small amount that was used to pay off a debt that was in all of the confusion of what was happening and everything else. You made a decision that you've said to me, you realize now wasn't the best decision, but that's what happened in all of that moment. And the vast majority of the money ended up going, as you said, to help other people and to be available to other people who need it.